Hey guys. Tonight, we wander deep into the marbled halls of a kingdom where power drips down golden pillars like honey under the desert sun. You stand barefoot on cool mosaic tiles, the scent of rosewater curling into your nose as distant oud music hums through archways. Tonight, we slip behind embroidered curtains to spy on two men who could make or break empires with a mere whisper to the sultan. You're about to witness the rise of two viziers whose lives are more dramatic than your group chats, your favorite reality show, and your last 3 exes combined. And honestly, if you think your job is stressful, imagine accidentally angering the sultan with a wrong word and finding your head rolling elegantly across these pristine floors. You probably won't survive this either. But luckily here, it's just your eyelids that will be falling. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments, where are you listening from? And what's your local time right now? Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The moon is at its highest point as you trudge silently through the palace's outer courtyard, where fountains whisper secrets to lotus flowers and oil lamps flicker under marble arches. A pair of guards with curved scimitars nod you past as if you're invisible, a fleeting shadow among many tonight. Inside, the grand audience chamber yawns wide, lined with ivory-carved columns. On a throne of sandalwood inlaid with mother-of-pearl sits the sultan, cross-legged, eyes heavy-lidded with boredom, stroking his pointed beard. But you're not here for him. Not yet. You're here for the 2 men standing to either side of his throne, both with the same tall crimson turban, both draped in robes so fine they ripple like desert dunes under sunrise. They are brothers and viziers of this realm. The older one, Al-Nadir, carries himself like an eagle, sharp-nosed, shoulders back, always calculating who in the room fears him the most. The younger, Jamal, is softer-faced, his eyes constantly scanning scrolls, accounts, or people's expressions, as if truth hides in every eyelash twitch. You watch as Al-Nadir leans in, whispering something into the sultan's ear. The sultan's mouth curls upward in a faint smile. Jamal notices but says nothing, only folds his hands deeper into his robe's sleeves. Historians still argue whether this moment, this subtle grin at Al-Nadir's words, planted the first seed of rivalry between the 2 brothers, or merely watered a jealousy already rooted deep in Jamal's chest. A cool breeze drifts in through stained glass windows, carrying scents of coriander and saffron from the kitchens below. You hear a faint clatter. Someone dropped a bronze tray in the servants' corridor. Both viziers twitch in irritation. Even perfection must tolerate minor flaws. It seems, in the Abbasid Caliphate courts, viziers often wielded as much practical power as the caliph himself. Managing the treasury, appointments, and espionage networks, they were basically walking HR, finance, PR, and CIA departments rolled into one robed man with a lot of eyeliner. Some viziers, like Jafar ibn Yahya, were known to compose poetry between signing tax decrees, as if dropping a Shakespearean sonnet would lessen the sting of a 50% grain levy. Imagine your boss reciting love poetry while approving your overtime slip. Above, the coffered ceiling sparkles with gold leaf patterns reflecting candlelight. You notice tiny shadows flickering between the beams. Bats, perhaps, or just the illusions of an overtired mind. Jamal clears his throat softly and unrolls a scroll detailing merchants' grievances about caravan raids near the northern border. His voice is gentle, yet clear, each word precisely placed like chess pieces. Al-Nadir sighs and rolls his eyes so hard you're surprised they don't tumble out and across the mosaic floor. If eye-rolling burned calories, Al-Nadir would be thinner than your patience waiting for payday. The Sultan waves a dismissive hand. Later, he mutters, focusing instead on Al-Nadir's counsel about raising taxes on camel herders to fund the Royal Falconry project. Yes, Royal Falcons need their gold-trimmed hoods too. Historians still argue whether this tax was an economic strategy to assert state power over desert tribes, or simply a status flex by a ruler who really liked birds. Jamal lowers his gaze, tucks the scroll back into his satchel, and steps silently behind the throne. His robe swishes softly across the tiles. You catch the faintest glimmer in his dark eyes. Sadness, or something sharper. Remember, if someone ever underestimates you at work, just imagine yourself as Jamal, underappreciated but secretly plotting the downfall of your rival with a polite smile and an invoice for 50 gold dinars. Candles gutter in the breeze, their flames bending low like courtiers bowing to royal will. Al-Nadir snaps his fingers. A young page scuttles forward with a brass ewer of rosewater to wash his hands. The scent floods the air, mingling with the Sultan's perfumed robes and your own drifting thoughts. You can almost feel the cool water pour over your own tired fingers. Outside, dawn threatens beyond the archways, a pale glow licking the black horizon. Tonight, palace intrigue has only just begun to uncoil its serpentine body across these gleaming halls. The brothers stand in silence as the Sultan rises and retreats to his private chambers. Slippers brushing mosaic tiles with a whisper softer than your heartbeat, slowing to sleep. If the Sultan walks any quieter, he'll start charging rent for ghosts to haunt his hallways. And so ends this first hour in the Grand Court, where two Viziers stand shoulder to shoulder yet world apart. Their rivalry will ignite fires you'll soon feel licking your own dreams, unless, of course, sleep drags you away first. You wake, or at least drift, into the next scene as if time here is only a thin veil fluttering in the palace breeze. The night has passed, and morning light now filters through mashrabia screens, laying lattice shadows across the polished floors. Servants pad quietly between courtyards, carrying trays of mint tea and dates stuffed with almonds for the early council meeting. You find yourself at the far end of the long marble hall, its columns rising like petrified trees into an unseen canopy above. There, at the chamber's heart, sit the two Viziers, brothers by blood, rivals by choice. Jamal, the younger, pores over scrolls, his ink-stained fingers tapping calculations into memory. Al-Nadir reclines against a silk cushion, eyes half closed, as if bored by the responsibilities that keep entire cities from falling into famine and chaos. One servant girl refills Jamal's brass inkwell, her head bowed so low you worry her forehead might permanently fuse with the tiles. Jamal thanks her softly. Historians still argue whether his kindness towards palace staff was genuine humility or strategic charm to build loyalty beneath his brother's radar. Viziers often came from merchant families or scholarly lineages rather than military aristocracy. As rulers believed, educated men were less likely to rebel with swords, though apparently not less likely to rebel with words and paperwork. You watch as Al-Nadir flicks a pomegranate seed across the table, hitting Jamal's scroll with precise irritation. Jamal sighs and wipes away the sticky smear. Al-Nadir chuckles softly, swirling his cup of cardamom coffee. The aroma is sharp, citrusy, and dark. You can almost taste its bitterness on your tongue. If passive-aggressive fruit flicking were an Olympic sport, Al-Nadir would bring home gold, silver, and bronze, and still complain the medals clash with his robe. "Brother," Al-Nadir drawls, his voice like velvet pulled over broken glass. "Must you bury your nose in ledgers all morning? The Sultan requires men of vision, not mere accountants." Jamal raises an eyebrow, tapping his reed pen against his chin. Vision collapses without a foundation of order. The Sultan's caravans cannot fund your grand architectural dreams if raiders steal half the cargo before it reaches the city gates. Al-Nadir's smile slips for a fraction of a second. You see something dark flicker behind his eyes, like a desert snake curling under a rock. Some medieval Islamic courts wrapped Viziers' turbans with hidden silver threads, not merely for beauty, but as subtle insurance, if assassinated. Their blood-soaked turban could be melted down and sold for burial rites. Practicality at its darkest. The morning council begins. Merchants line up to present petitions about irrigation canal repairs and the rise in black scorpion infestations near the spice market. A pearl merchant from Basra bows low before Jamal, his prayer beads clacking softly in nervous fingers. "Honored Vizier," he stammers, "may God prolong your wisdom. My ships return from India this month. If customs taxes rise again, we will not survive." Jamal listens carefully, eyes narrowing as he calculates the balance between state treasury needs and merchant solvency. He nods once. "I will bring your case before the Sultan this afternoon." Behind him, Al-Nadir snorts so loudly a nearby scribe flinches, smudging an entire line of court records. Somewhere in the future, an annoyed historian will read that smudge and blame it on earthquakes, rats, or demonic possession, never guessing it was just Al-Nadir's opinionated nose. Historians still argue whether the brothers' rivalry arose purely from personal jealousy or was fueled by advisors whispering poison into both ears to keep them divided and thus more easily controlled by the Sultan. Power, after all, works best when its strongest servants are busy tearing each other apart. The sun climbs higher, illuminating motes of dust dancing in shafts of gold light. Jamal rises to dismiss the petitioners, rolling his scrolls neatly. Al-Nadir stretches lazily, bones clicking, and waves him off. "Run along, little brother. Tell the Sultan your tedious news. I will remain here and contemplate real matters of state." As Jamal glides past him, you catch the quiet reply under his breath. "One day, brother, those tedious details will decide whether your vision rises into the heavens or collapses into dust." For a moment, the brothers lock eyes, a silent duel of wills fought in shadows deeper than the marble veins beneath your feet. If looks could kill, Jamal would be 6 feet under, and Al-Nadir would be late for his next coup. The council chamber empties, echoing softly with the hush of departing footsteps and the low sob of a weeping petitioner outside. Jamal pauses at the grand bronze doors, fingers brushing a carved inscription about justice and truth. He inhales slowly, steadying his mind for whatever fresh test awaits him in the Sultan's private chambers beyond. Outside, a lone falcon screeches against the blue sky, wheeling in hungry spirals above the domes. The call pierces your bones, leaving a lingering tremor of tension as you drift in this story's gathering storm. You follow Jamal through a shadowed corridor lined with intricate geometric mosaics and hanging brass lanterns that sway gently in the breeze. The smell of oud incense curls around you like an invisible serpent as he approaches the towering carved doors of the Sultan's private audience chamber. 2 guards in black lacquered armor slam their spear butts onto the marble in unison. The sound echoes like a thunderclap through the silent hall. Jamal pauses, straightens his robe, and enters. Inside, the Sultan reclines upon a low couch piled with velvet cushions. Sunlight filters through stained glass, painting his pale robe with shifting patterns of ruby and sapphire. He doesn't look up immediately, continuing to peel a fig with his gold-handled dagger. "Vizier Jamal," the Sultan murmurs finally, flicking the dagger clean and popping the fig into his mouth. "Come closer." Jamal bows so low his turban nearly brushes the marble. The Sultan gestures lazily to a small stool before him. Jamal sits, folding his hands in his lap. "Tell me," the Sultan drawls, licking fig syrup from his thumb. "What troubles my realm today?" Jamal clears his throat softly and begins recounting the merchants' petitions. The threat of raids from desert tribes. The canal silt clogging irrigation routes near the date groves. His voice is calm and measured, each word chosen with care, as if building an invisible fortress from logic to protect himself. Abbasid caliphs and sultans often employed tests or riddles to assess their viziers' wisdom and loyalty, believing a sharp mind in politics equaled divine favor. As Jamal speaks, the Sultan's dark eyes gleam with an unfathomable thought. He raises a hand abruptly. Jamal falls silent. "Enough," the Sultan whispers, almost to himself. "Today, I wish to see which of my viziers truly possesses wisdom worthy of the heavens." Some medieval Middle Eastern courts believed a ruler's dream could reveal the treachery of advisors. A caliph once executed an entire group of viziers after dreaming they were black crows pecking at his eyes. Sweet dreams. The Sultan leans forward, steepling his slender fingers. "You and your brother shall be tested. I will set a riddle before you both at tonight's gathering. Fail me, and..." He lets the sentence drift, like incense smoke vanishing into the rafters. "Nothing like the casual threat of decapitation to keep you awake at bedtime, huh?" Jamal bows deeply, "As my lord commands." "Good." The Sultan waves him away and turns to stare out the window at the bustling inner courtyard, where a royal falconer trains a hooded bird on his gloved wrist. Historians still argue whether this test was designed purely as entertainment for the bored sultan, or if, beneath the silken words, lay a deeper ploy to weaken both viziers before elevating another loyal puppet to power. Jamal exits, feeling the cool stone under his sandals with each step, grounding himself against the tremor of dread crawling up his spine. As he walks back through the great hall, his mind spins with possibilities. What riddle would the Sultan pose? What trap lay hidden behind golden words? He passes a line of concubines carrying trays of dried apricots and pistachios toward the harem. Their bangles jingle softly like distant wind chimes. One girl lifts her gaze just enough to catch his eye and quickly lowers it again, cheeks blooming pink. He offers a gentle smile, kindness, or simply a fleeting courtesy on this perilous morning. Outside in the courtyard, Al-Nadir stands surrounded by minor advisors, gesturing grandly about new taxation policies to fund palace renovations. Jamal watches him for a moment. The older brother is laughing loudly at his own joke about camel dung bricks being sturdier than half the palace walls. He's not wrong. Camel dung bricks built entire medieval cities, a true sustainability hero. Jamal approaches. "Brother," he says, voice steady. "The Sultan has summoned us both for a test tonight." Al-Nadir's laughter stops abruptly, his eyes narrow. "A test? For what purpose?" Jamal shrugs lightly. "To measure our wisdom, it seems..." "Wisdom?" Al-Nadir scoffs. "He already knows I am the sharper blade. Let him test us. I will slice through any riddle with ease." But Jamal sees it, the flicker of unease behind his brother's bravado, like a lantern guttering in sudden wind. Historians still argue whether Al-Nadir truly feared his brother's intellect, or if his insecurity lay rooted in knowing he often relied on intimidation rather than insight to sway the Sultan's favor. The courtyard is alive with morning noise, pigeons flapping to the domed roofs, servants scrubbing marble steps with sand and lye, the distant ring of hammer on bronze from the armorer's forge. Life continues, unaware that tonight, a single riddle might upend the kingdom's delicate balance. Imagine your boss inviting you to a mandatory riddle night where wrong answers get you permanently transferred, 6 feet under. Jamal turns away from his brother's gaze and walks toward his own chambers. where scrolls and quiet candlelight await him. He knows the hours between now and sunset will pass swiftly, like sand falling silent and unstoppable through a glass bulb. The sun climbs higher, and the scent of roasting lamb drifts from palace kitchens, mingling with blooming jasmine along the colonnades. You feel it too, the tightening tension in the air, like the taut string of an unseen bow, ready to release its silent, deadly arrow into the coming night. The sun dips low over the palace, bleeding amber light across domes and spires until everything glows with a gentle, burning brilliance. You move softly through the hush of the twilight corridors, following Jamal as he returns to his private chamber. Inside, shelves of scrolls and thick leather-bound tomes line the walls, their spines cracked with centuries of whispered knowledge. Oil lamps flicker, casting dancing shadows across geometric tile work. Jamal sits cross-legged on a woven prayer rug, the scent of sandalwood incense curling into his senses as he unrolls scroll after scroll, scanning for proverbs, riddles, or metaphors that might arm him for tonight's challenge. He leans over a text titled The Book of Wisdom and Caution, its parchment crinkling under his careful fingertips. The script flows in elegant black lines, each letter a small fortress of meaning. Historians still argue whether such texts truly prepared Viziers for political survival or merely comforted their anxieties in the face of unpredictable royal whims. Medieval Islamic scholars produced thousands of treatises on logic, riddles, and paradoxes to train minds for law, theology, and governance. A vizier's wit wasn't simply a party trick. It was a survival skill sharper than any sword. He reads one riddle aloud, his quiet voice echoing off cool stone walls. I am taken from a mine, shut in a wooden case, from which I am never released. And yet I am used by almost every artisan. What am I? You smile drowsily at the answer. Pencil lead. Though in his world, it was more likely to be graphite encased in reed or silver stylus. A servant enters with mint tea and honeyed almonds, placing the tray silently beside him. Jamal nods gratefully, without looking up, his mind tunneling deeper into the labyrinth of metaphors. Meanwhile, across the palace, Al-Nadir sits upon a cushioned divan in his own grand chamber. Instead of scrolls, his evening preparations involve a brass mirror, rose oil combed into his thick beard, and a goblet of spiced wine cradled lazily in his fingers. He smirks at his reflection. A test, he mutters. What riddle could confound me? Medieval Middle Eastern men often scented their beards with rose musk or ambergris, a waxy substance from whale intestines used in perfumes. Imagine telling your date you're wearing fermented whale gut today. A thin advisor stands nearby, nervously rubbing his palms together. My lord, he whispers, perhaps you should revise some logic problems before tonight. Al-Nadir flicks his hand dismissively. Riddles are for children and court poets. I will simply watch Jamal solve it, then claim his answer as my own. The advisor swallows hard and nods. Historians still argue whether Al-Nadir truly lacked intellectual discipline, or whether he simply enjoyed demonstrating that brute charisma often outweighed careful scholarship in royal courts. If bluffing were a professional degree, Al-Nadir would have graduated summa cum laude with a minor in arrogance. Back in Jamal's chamber, he leans his head back against the wall, eyes fluttering closed for a moment. Candles hiss softly as melted wax pools at their brass bases. The prayer rug is warm under his knees, the woven fibers pressing gentle patterns into his skin. He remembers childhood mornings learning poetry and calligraphy beside Al-Nadir, back when their father was still alive, to gently tap them both with his reed pen for sloppy flourishes. Back when brotherhood felt like shared armor rather than dueling blades. Outside, The first stars appear in the indigo sky, trembling in place. A servant announces from beyond the door that the Sultan's gathering is assembling. Jamal exhales slowly, rolling his shoulders to ease the tension of study, and rises to his feet. His robe rustles like a whisper of wind through olive trees. If studying riddles burned calories, Jamal would be too thin for his turban to stay on. He walks through the palace's inner courtyard, where braziers glow with flickering flames. Musicians pluck ouds and cannons, their notes weaving a soft silver net through the jasmine-scented night. Guests in embroidered robes gather in quiet clusters, their conversations a low murmur of ambition, fear, and curiosity. At the chamber's entrance stands Al-Nadir, resplendent in robes of deep emerald silk embroidered with golden falcons. He greets well-wishers with perfumed kisses on their cheeks and loud declarations of his brilliance. You see Jamal approach quietly, head bowed in humility. The two brothers stand side by side before the massive bronze doors, neither speaking. Historians still argue whether Jamal's quiet dignity irritated Al-Nadir more than any spoken insult could have. If awkward silences earned coins, these two could fund the next 3 crusades. The doors open with a creak that trembles through your bones. The grand audience hall shimmers with hundreds of oil lamps, their flames dancing like tiny captive spirits. At its far end sits the Sultan upon a carved ebony throne, a golden falcon hooded upon his wrist. His eyes glimmer darkly beneath his jeweled turban. He raises his free hand and gestures them forward. The crowd falls silent as the brothers walk across the mosaic floor, footsteps echoing in the hush. Every eye in the hall fixes upon them, 1,000 silent judgments weighing every heartbeat. Tonight, one brother's envy will blossom into something darker, something more twisted than mere rivalry. But for now, the only sound is the falcon's quiet screech as it shifts upon the Sultan's wrist, wings ruffling, sensing the tension humming through the smoky air. The two brothers stand before the Sultan, heads bowed in unison as the murmurs of the gathered court fade into the hush of flickering lamps. You can feel the silence settle around them like heavy velvet, warm yet suffocating. The Sultan lowers his gaze, studying them with eyes as sharp and unmoved as obsidian daggers. He rests his chin upon his knuckles, the falcon upon his wrist shifting and tightening its talons against the thick leather glove. For a moment, the bird's gold-studded hood glimmers in the lamplight like a tiny crown. "Tonight," the Sultan announces, his voice smooth as cooled honey, yet carrying an undercurrent of steel. "I set before my Viziers a riddle. The one who answers correctly shall be granted my utmost favor. The one who fails..." He lets his words drift, trailing away like candle smoke towards the shadowed rafters. Courts in the Islamic Golden Age often hosted riddle contests, not merely for entertainment, but to demonstrate intellectual supremacy, where losing could cost wealth, reputation, or life itself. A hush falls so deep you can hear the crackle of olive oil lamps and the fluttering hearts of every watching courtier. The Sultan leans back against his throne's carved cushions and speaks the riddle clearly. "I am not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. I don't have a mouth, and I can drown. What am I?" For a heartbeat, there is only silence. Al-Nadir smirks, his lips curling as he confidently steps forward. "Fire!" he proclaims in a rich, theatrical voice that echoes across the marble chamber. "It is fire, my lord. Fire grows when fed, dies without air, and water extinguishes it." The Sultan raises an eyebrow, a flicker of amusement passing through his dark gaze. He turns slowly towards Jamal. "And you, Vizier? What say you?" Jamal lowers his eyes, then raises them calmly to meet his ruler's gaze. "My brother is correct, my lord. he says softly. The answer is fire, but you sense something deeper beneath his quiet tone, like the hidden current beneath a placid lake. The Sultan's gaze lingers on him, searching for an unspoken meaning. Historians still argue whether Jamal's agreement was genuine submission or a subtle reminder that some riddles are designed not to divide, but to reveal truth's common ground. The Sultan nods once, sharply. Then tonight, no man fails, and yet no man triumphs alone. He flicks his wrist, and the falcon lets out a piercing cry that makes the hairs along your arms stand on end. Falcons in medieval courts were considered royal symbols of vision and justice. Some rulers believed that falcons could sense lies in the hearts of humans, their screech a judgment from above. Imagine failing your thesis defense and the professor's pet hawk screams at your bibliography. Honestly, if HR meetings involved falcons, people might show up on time more often. Al-Nadir bows deeply, hiding his clenched jaw behind his folded arms. Jamal bows as well, though his face is serene, eyes lowered to the intricate mosaic beneath his sandals. As they straighten, the Sultan waves them away with languid grace, his attention already shifting to a group of poets preparing to recite verses praising his rule. They exit side by side, their footsteps echoing through the golden hall. For a moment, neither speaks. Then Al-Nadir's voice slices through the silence like a dagger slipping between ribs. "You only echoed my answer to avoid showing me up," he hisses. "Do not play your false modesty games with me." Jamal sighs softly, his voice calm but edged with something cold. "I only spoke the truth. There is no victory tonight, brother, only a reminder of what burns within us both." Historians still argue whether Jamal's words were a plea for peace or a subtle warning that envy's fire consumes far more than it illuminates. They walk through the palace corridors, lit now by silent, ghostly lanterns. Servants scurry past them, heads lowered, carrying trays of spiced lamb stew, honey cakes, and pomegranates to the remaining guests. The mingled scents weave a sleepy perfume through the stone halls. If my sibling ever threatened me mid-walk like that, I'd throw a pomegranate at their head and run for my life. Outside, the desert wind rises, sighing through the courtyards and rustling the palms with a sound like whispered secrets. The brothers part ways at the fork in the corridor, Al-Nadir striding towards his private wing where music and laughter spill into the night. Jamal turning silently towards his chambers, his shadow long and thin beneath the hanging lanterns. At least neither brother lost their head tonight. Small victories matter, especially when your neck is on the line. And as you watch him disappear into the flickering shadows, you realize the palace itself seems to exhale. A long, silent breath held through an evening of tension and released into the cool desert darkness. Tonight, jealousy has only begun its slow bloom in one man's heart, its roots coiled deeper with every envy-sharpened thought. But for now, the night lies soft around you, heavy with rosewater and quiet schemes.